Another season is upon us and another jungle is upon us. With that, the annual video about how you can become a better jungler has arrived. I will be giving you 5 steps for the 5 most important principles for the jungle that will amplify the strengths of the role in Season 13. And hopefully with this, it can take your jungling to the next level so you can climb, but also have the most success adapting and focusing on the important things that allow you to have success despite the changes that have come through. And if you're looking for jungle-specific builds and runes and paths and which is the best way to play certain junglers, my ZydaGG Live Companion app will have all of that available for you. I will be updating all the builds this week, so download them, get used to the junglers, get used to the routes and the builds that are currently there, and I will update with all the best items as Riot continues to shift the role. Now yes, there are a lot of changes coming to the jungle this patch, and there'll be a lot of changes coming again in January. The whole jungle concept though will remain the same. The specifics, the nuances, we will continue to make videos as those change, but the core principles of jungling that come with the new jungle pets, the new counter jungling restrictions, the experience and the gold nerfs, all of that will be easily tackled with all of these principles. And the first one we're going to start with is jungle intuition. This is a bit of a loaded concept because a lot of junglers are focusing too much on themselves. They're focusing on their own full clears, their own restrictive game plans. They're not having the same success in Season 12 because they have not adapted their mindset. Jungle intuition is that concept that fundamentally makes you enter that flow state, the ability to solo carry games. The first step in this regard is the proactive tracking and extrapolation. If you are not asking yourself where the enemy jungler started, what game plan they might try to exploit, and what they want to achieve in the early game stages, then you're already failing at the first facet of jungling. This is something I need you all to focus on. It will allow your jungle intuition to go up to the next level, but as soon as you start asking yourself what would Canyon do or what does the enemy jungler want, you can start to reconcile that with your own pathing, and that is absolutely fundamental to jungle success. Additionally, you need to know what camps are down and where they have been, and this indirect evidence or direct evidence if you have vision will allow you to infer where they want to go next. And where they want to go next is just as important as any question in life because that's how valuable jungle is to us. And through this, it will allow us to counter gank through shadowing. If you are struggling to execute a game plan, if you are struggling to find a way to get into lanes while farming your camps, instead focus on your first clears, focus on your sequences, but really get into the mind of the enemy jungler. That's all you're gonna do. You're gonna play 1 or 2, 3 games after watching this video, and this is all you're gonna focus on. Where is the enemy jungler? What do they want to do? And what can I damn well do about it? And that leads to the second thing, and that's equal and opposite jungling. We know this term. They take a dragon, we take a herald. They gank bot, we take top lane. Classically, they take our raptors, we take their raptors. But now with the 20% reduction in the ability to take camps, has that affected it? No. Too many times the low elo meme train starts spreading its disease of nonsense and corrupts those who will be better set not listening to it. Remember, the fact that they've nerfed it means yes, in the early phases you will have issues taking certain camps. It will take you longer to do so. It doesn't mean if they gank bot lane, you can't take Grump. Doesn't mean if they gank bot lane, you can't take Grump and Wolves. It just means that you're going to be there just a little bit longer, which can also be great because they'll be trailing upwards, you take your camps in front of them, and now they're really lost about what to do. In short, counter jungling is extremely strong. In short, counter jungling has a lot of effect. Why? Because in the mid game, we definitely have slower clear speeds, which means we're getting less gold, less experience from the jungle. We're going to have to focus more on fighting, ganks, objectives, and pushing waves and elevating game states. This means that every single time you take a camp, not only are you denying that, you are also denying their treats. If you can get to 20 treats first, you have a much bigger smite for neutral contest. If you get to 40 treats first, not only do you have the upgraded combat stats of the jungle pet, now you have 1200 damage to 900 damage. So that advantage can be quite palpable when certain junglers maybe need to scale or have an urgency to end games quickly. All in all, strong equal and opposite jungling is as strong as it's ever been for junglers in most elos. You will simply allow yourself to get that 6, 7, 8 CS per minute. You will deny them treats, you will deny them those combat stats and ability to fight with that upgraded pet. All in all, it does a lot of work for you, even if it takes you just a few seconds longer to counter jungle crucial camps. And of course, there's no strategic issue in terms of, leaving camps and leaving babies and things like that because they all despawn anyway after 10 seconds, so just take what you can and get out safely. Denial is a strong thing for the jungle and it's just as strong as it's ever been. Don't think just because it takes you longer to do Grump that you can't do it. The third thing that is very strong for early game jungling in Season 13 are those extended early sequences, those quadrant clearings. Someone even tweeted at me saying, is it normal to see junglers do 2 full clears before basing for the first time? And I said, well, that's been a thing for about 2 years since they revamped the new itemization. In fact, it was a thing when they originally made the jungle spawn timers go down to 2 minutes. And I spoke a lot about when they upgraded those timings all the way to 215 on patch 11.4. I said, hey, you can 5 camp now, crab at 315, gank top, gank mid, take the bottom crab, look for the bottom lane gank, and then you can loop up to do your tier 1 Krugs, tier 2 Raptors, tier 2 Wolves, and tier 2 Grump. You'll be level 6 and you can go back to base. Obviously, you know, we're not level 6 anymore, but you're still putting yourself in prime position to do so, as well as to decide which side of the map you want to execute your game plan on. And of course, which side of the map do you want to match or counter the enemy jungle on? In short, prolonging that first phase when you go back to base is not possible on almost every other jungler. I got invaded as a Warwick the other day for the first time in the history of the champion. I could just do red, Krugs, Raptors, and then counter invade and kill the enemy jungler. I could never do that before, and now all of a sudden I can actually stay out longer to take my Tiamat. The AoE ability of the jungle pet is something that's quite potent, but not really that strong. By that I mean it really does help us before we have our Tiamat, but it's not something that's necessarily going to replace it. It just allows us to execute longer stretches in the early phases. Secondly, because the crab spawns at 330, if there's truly nothing for you to do, and you'll just have generic footage here, there isn't a lot of examples about specific cases of this yet, but if you don't necessarily have the ability to take that crab in terms of ganking top, ganking mid, you know they're pathing to the same side, just reset. You can get an early buy, you can get an opposite scuttle, look for tier 2 invades, you can gank those other lanes that are gankable, resequence yourself, and then you can still stay out for another gank potentially on the top side. You can counter gank them if they've sort of matched you in that tempo. Whether you're staying out longer in the first rotation, or the second rotation, or even the third rotation, this is a Canyon-esque strategy that he's been doing for years. He'll just stay out longer than he thinks he needs to in order to make plays responsive to what's happening on the map. If you miss these windows and you go back to base too often, you're just taking 20 to 30 seconds of yourself off the map for no particular reason. It's the same thing as dying needlessly. It's the same thing as inting yourself on a tower. Every time you're dead, you can't farm. Every time you're dead, you can't gank, take objectives. Every time you're dead, you can't counter jungle. If the enemy jungler's alive and on the field, they can make plays while you cannot. And because counter jungling, as I mentioned in the previous point, can be quite strong in terms of denying your smite upgrade, your pet upgrade, and just basically giving you golden experience, allowing you to be within touching distance of your top laners, needlessly going back to base when you could stay out to make longer plays, full sequences, quadrant clears, cutting into gangs, snacking a dragon when someone carries on sequencing too long on the other side. You can make a lot of plays just by staying out a little bit longer. Don't be a goblin and hold on to 5,000 gold, but if you have 2,000, 3,000, as long as you're not taking pointless fights and playing at a huge gold deficit, and this is just simply for getting more gold in the moment that carries no risk, there's nothing wrong with that. So in Season 13, think deeply about what can I maximize while I'm on the field before I go back to base, even if I'll stay out longer than I necessarily anticipated. And through this, hopefully you get yourself fed, hopefully you get your laners fed, hopefully you're controlling some objectives. However, the fourth point here is game state elevation changes and what it means. Naturally, with the reduction of charge on that herald, with the addition of resistances on the tower plates, you're gonna have a lot of issues busting open at 2.5 plates because it doesn't work like that. Just under 2 plates is where it's at now, and so junglers are wasting their heralds trying to open a tower, and they are simply struggling to get that going, and it's causing the map to stay closed a little bit longer. And yes, my friends, that's the point, right? Didn't want us busting open and elevating the game state at 10 minutes with a herald, forcing map rotations before laners were ready. They wanted laning phase to be laning phase. For a great specific example of this, you see here an Echo from the gameplay channel. He decided he was going to use the herald mid lane after a gank, wasn't able to finish off the kill in the tower, had to leave, but that's okay. Echo likes that, assassins like that. Sometimes we do enjoy going into their jungle, living there, but if our team isn't ready to follow us, if our team could use that downtime to get a little bit stronger, or if the enemy laner basically is sitting up on a tower and we can kill them all, then that works as well. Effectively, what this change has done along with the gold shift of the herald a few months ago means that the herald all of a sudden has a lot of value in terms of the golden experience, the local that you get, as well as the gold plates you get in terms of raw monetary value. The lack of value that we have, the diminishing value that we have this season, is in how we take the first tower and then translate that to elevating the game state so we can push into the mid game. This means you need to play around it accordingly. Sometimes a herald is just gonna be used for plate gold, and it's still worth taking for all of the reasons I just said. That being said, we do want dragons and souls as well, but if I have to trade a herald for a dragon early, I don't really want to do that. I'd rather take the herald than the dragon. It just means we have time to get that much stronger before we bust down the first tier 1s and then start pushing into the jungle. We want to push the map after all, but you don't really want to do it before you're ready, before your team is ready. And at the same time, if the enemy jungler gets the herald and looks to try and push the map down too soon, they're not going to be able to do that, and it gives you time, the jungler, to track, counter gank, and actually get shutdowns before they're able to take the tier 1. I think we can all appreciate a losing bot lane and how irritating it is to be 4-man dove 3 times and then herald activation and you lose your tower. Now as a jungler, we can do something about it. At the same time, when that tower doesn't fall and they can't even take it themselves, it does also give you time for more equal and opposite, which we've talked about in this video. So they go ahead and try and bust down bottom lane tower. We say, okay, well, you're not going to get that right now. I can dive your top lane and take your top side camps, maybe take another dragon when it respawns after reset, and you will be in a little bit of trouble. In short, game state elevation has been muted slightly, but the golden experience we can get before we finally take that first tower, that has increased. Get it, use it, exemplify it, and win games from it. And finally, this point is a message to all junglers who now know the crab spawns at 3:30 and think that anyone can clear in jungle at the moment. You are incorrect, good ladies and gentlemen. Just because you can full clear by 3:30 does not mean you can jungle. In fact, if that is the only thing you can do, you are not a jungler, you are useless. You could have 3:30 cleared last season on many junglers. You know why they weren't junglers? Because you get double scuttled, and the map impact that would happen before you got there would basically mean you were useless for the next 25 minutes. Guess what? That hasn't changed. Just because you might get one scuttle doesn't mean that the Zed who just 258 full cleared didn't already gank your top lane, gank your mid lane by the time you came out of your jungle for the crab, and that's assuming that sucker doesn't invade and kill you on your gromp. The metric for being a jungler isn't your ability to full clear slowly. The ability for you to be a jungler is that you can full clear or at least 5 and 4 camp at a reasonable pace, max the tempo of whoever the enemy jungler is such that you at least have map control on one scuttle, and are able to impact through ganks or counter ganks early. If you're 3:30 full clearing taking a crab, it better be within the context of your game plan and the enemy jungler's game plan. For example, if they want to do the same thing and they're the opposite side, then okay, we can snack that extra camp, there's no ganking available, we can go up for the 3:30 crab, we can ward their tier 2 gromp, then we can dive, then we can gank, then we can reset. That's fine, but I've now played a lot of junglers on this patch, and all I'm seeing are junglers who are 0-0-0 by 8, 10, 12, 15 minutes. What are you doing? And you would have noticed here from some of the clips, yes, I'm playing some Cassante, and what did I do in some of these clips here? I used the outside in rule. I died on the dragon with my team fight, I reset, I went straight to the outer crab, I knew this Shyvana wouldn't have smited it away. In one other case, I had a huge amount of map tempo and had been out a long time, a good extended sequence, the herald was up, I wanted to take it, I reset, I went straight back there for the outside in rule to get that crab, and the Varus was there who we killed and then took the herald. So, stop AFK farming and re-implement the use of the outside in rule. Stop AFK farming and use the implementation of quadrant clearing. Do a quadrant, look for a gank, cut the map if you need to. Hey look, I should really AFK farm. No, they've slowed it down. Look at your bottom lane. Can you gank it and fall back to your camps afterwards? Do a quadrant, then maybe cut in and gank the mid lane? Okay, do that as well. I don't want to see 0-0 junglers or 1-0-0 junglers who are equal in CS to other junglers who have higher KDAs and more objective control. It's not about AFK farming, even though farming is still good, it just means you need to be able to control the map a little bit better, because your teamfighting mechanics, your teamfighting expertise is what's going to win games in Season 13 as well. Combine all of these 5 steps, my friends, and I guarantee you will see a lot more impact in Season 13. Stop full clearing by 3:30, start to cut into the 5 camps, do the extended sequence and double rotations I mentioned, counter jungle, take equal and opposite, gank your lanes, play around your ultimate spikes, be active, continue to be active just like in Season 12, except of course with the added benefit of having pets that will then amplify all of your strengths in the mid and the late game, where you can use that, your teamfight experience after game state elevation, to snack on all souls that will give you LP. If you are curious exactly what you can do instead of just full clearing blindly, and you really want to understand the best way to play the game, click on these fundamentals in the top right to refresh yourself about why we love and hate jungle.